What's going on, Bulls Nation? We're going to be doing the Jalen Smith breakdown video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about what Jalen Smith does really well on the offensive end, talk about his efficiency as a player, not just in terms of his efficient numbers, but also what he does in terms of his movement, and also then talk about his defensive end, the good and the bad when it comes to Jalen Smith defensively. But before we get into it all, make sure to hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'm sure you guys are aware Jalen Smith has signed a 3-year, $27 million contract to come to the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls use part of their mid-level exception to sign him. Here are his stats from last season. They're pretty good stats overall. And then even in the previous season for Smith, they were also pretty good looking stats. This year, though, in terms of the efficiency, just right off the bat, you can just look at some of the efficient numbers. In 2.5 threes a game, he shot 42% from three-point range. He shot 59% overall from the field. And he shot 69% from two-point range, which is insane. And there was a moment this season where Jalen Smith actually was shooting 50% from three-point range and 70% from two-point range. Those are incredibly efficient stats. If you look at just his true shooting percentage just in general, you can see like, wow, Jalen Smith, in terms of true shooting, is usually at the top of the leaderboard, even though he takes three-point shots. And I'm talking mostly about last season. So Jalen Smith, in terms of how he gets his offense, which he is a very good offensive player, he has three big reasons why he gets points and why he's effective on the offensive end. So just a quick look at like some of the play types for Jalen Smith. So last year, in terms of him being a pick and roll man, he was in the 79th percentile, so that's very, very good. 1.33 points per possession as a pick and roll man. And he was also a very good spot up shooter. As you can see, he was in the 93rd percentile in terms of spot up shooting. 1.25 points per possession on him just being a spot up shooter, which again, from a big man, that's very good to have on your team. And then also in transition last season, Jalen Smith was in the 90th percentile. As you can see here, he was 1.34 points per possession in transition. So those are three main areas where Jalen Smith gets a lot of his points, and it makes a lot of sense where if you think about his efficiency, well, being a pick and roll man, spotting up from three, and then obviously getting easy buckets in transition is how you become an efficient player. Here's his shot chart from last season, and let me just say, I love it. He only played 61 games last season due to some injuries, but you can see here, it's threes and paint. Just what I want to see, because that is the definition of being a modern day player. Now, let's get into some of the film here. So I want to show you, first off, Jalen Smith's kind of bread and butter, all right? Jalen Smith likes to do a lot of handoff pick and rolls and a lot of pick and rolls to the top of the key. That's his bread and butter. And what he does very well, which is he basically looks at what the guard decides to do, and he plays off of his guard or whoever has the ball really, really well. So, for example, this is going to be a handoff play, as you can probably tell. As you can see, screen, come on over, and Smith's going to hand him the ball. But in this play right here, you're going to see that Smith, or the ball handler, the ball handler actually takes the screen, right? So Jalen Smith is going to understand this. He's going to slip the screen because he took it, and he's going to get an easy dunk out of it because he slipped the screen, and his ball handler took the screen, and he just basically goes ahead and rolls hard to the rim. Similar situation here. Instead of this being a handoff, it's just a pick and roll with Tyrese Halliburton. And you see Tyrese Halliburton takes the screen, and Smith does a little small screen, and he just dives hard to the rim. And because he dives hard to the rim, the defense is not ready, and he gets another easy dunk out of it. So, something just to keep note of, when Jalen Smith sees that his ball handler, or whoever has the ball, takes his screen that he's setting, he dives hard to the rim most of the time. Again, it's not every time, but most of the time, he dives hard to the rim. When his ball handler decides, hey, I'm going to reject the screen, I'm not going to use the screen that you're going to give me here, you're going to see him actually fade back to the three-point line. And watch. So TJ McConnell here has the ball. He rejects the screen from Jalen Smith. This is Jalen Smith. And Smith was coming over to set a screen, and McConnell went this way, right? What this does now is that Evan Mobley now has to come on over and make sure that TJ McConnell doesn't get a baseline layup. Therefore, Jalen Smith recognizes, oh, okay, McConnell went this way. My man's going to go and help. I go back to the three-point line here, and Smith gets a wide-open three-point shot out of it because he recognizes what the guard did and creates space off of what his guard decided to do. Another example here. Okay, this is with Tyrese Halliburton. Halliburton decides, I'm not going to use the screen. This again puts the defense in a rough position, so Mobley has to move on over. And because of that, Jalen Smith just stays at the three-point line. His man went up with Halliburton, and he's wide open. This is how Jalen Smith gets a lot of his points, and this is his bread and butter. He recognizes what the guard is going to do and understands what the defense is going to react with. Therefore, he takes the space. So if he sets the screen, the guard takes the screen, he's going to roll hard to the rim most of the time. And then when his guard rejects the screen, he understands that his man has to go and help. Therefore, he steps back to the three-point line and creates a lot of space that way, and he's open for the three-point shot most of the time. Again, it's not every single time. It's not going to be like, 1-to-1. But this is something that Jalen Smith has done a really good job of recognizing with his guards is what did my guard do? How can I create space off of what my guard just did? So something that I really, really love from Jalen Smith already. Now, other parts of Jalen Smith's game that I'm always interested in is how well does he play well with space, okay? This is a play here where he is actually not going to get the ball. But in terms of what we talked about with efficiency, right? His numbers are very efficient. Jalen Smith is very good when it comes to his movement and him being efficient with his spacing and movement. So watch this play. So this is just a little screen and roll action, and Smith gets the switch. So DeMar DeRozan is now on Jalen Smith. So Smith rolls hard to the rim. As you can see, his guard took the screen. He's rolling hard to the rim. Both switched, okay? Now, Smith understands when the Bulls are in this spot right here, where DeMar DeRozan is now suddenly the help man, and obviously Vooch is on the perimeter, which is not a good thing. But if DeMar DeRozan is the help man in this situation, that's good for the Pacers, because DeMar DeRozan is not a good help defender. And so Smith recognizes this and says, all right, I'm going to make sure that DeMar DeRozan is going to stay here baseline. So he basically keeps DeMar DeRozan on this baseline area and basically forces him to be the help defender in this possession. He then says, hey, I'm going to set a little back screen on Caruso here, which keeps DeRozan in this spot, but lets his teammate move to the corner and potentially get an open three-point shot. But what it mostly does is watch Haliburton. Haliburton is going to drive hard to the rim, and DeMar DeRozan now is the help defender, which again, he's not a good help defender. And because of that, Haliburton's going to be able to draw in DeRozan, which then allows, I believe this is Toppin here, to just slip past, and Toppin's going to be able to get an easy reverse layup baseline. That's how Jalen Smith just understands how to use his player movement and his spacing to help his teammates. He understood, well, DeRozan is going to be the help man if I keep him over here, and he forces DeRozan to stay there, and then right when the drive happens, you saw Jalen Smith move out of the way to space the floor better, and as you can see, easy layup for the Pacers because of it. So, another possession here, and this is an example of Jalen Smith using a lot of his just again, awareness of where to be, okay? So, this play here, TJ McConnell just drives hard, okay? And obviously, Vooch is guarding Smith, and so Vooch comes along and collapses onto TJ McConnell. Smith recognizes, oh, okay, McConnell is diving in. He's kind of now stuck in no man's land. He can't throw this ball back out to me at the three-point line, so I need to come run in. Potentially get this ball from McConnell if he decides to throw it back. McConnell doesn't do that. He throws it back out to another teammate. So Smith ran in, understood, okay, I need to run in to help McConnell if necessary. And now he's like, okay, we're able to throw it back out. Now I'm going to move back out to the three-point line. So Smith went from starting here to here, and now he's moving out to the three-point line in just one possession, okay? And this forces then Vooch into a rough spot, and Vooch has to go out and contest the three-point shot. Smith misses the shot, but that's very good awareness from your big man to understand, okay, here's my guard. He might need help. I'm going to go back in to help him out, and if the ball's thrown back out, I need to go back out and space the floor to help and potentially get a three-point shot out of it, which he did. He misses it. That's fine, though. Take that shot every single time. I have no issues with it whatsoever. Now we're going to talk about Jalen Smith with the ball in his hands a little bit, because obviously a lot of this stuff has been Smith kind of, getting set up by Haliburton or his teammates, which is mostly what he's done. But we've seen a little bit of Jalen Smith with the ball in his hands, and it's pretty solid. I mean, for example, like this is like a semi-transition play where Haliburton just kind of shovels it off to him, and just a little, dribble past Vooch and finish over him, which is pretty solid to see. Another play against the Bulls here. This is when Jalen Smith is actually playing the 4 position. So as you can see, Miles Turner is on the floor here. So Smith is playing the 4 and DeRozan's guarding him. And you see here that you throw it out to Turner, and Smith's going to come down here and just set a little screen for Haliburton to come up off of. And because of how the way the defense reacted, where you see DeRozan has to suddenly now guard Turner and Smith because Miles Turner came up and set another screen for Haliburton. So now 2 guys went to Haliburton. You're going to see Miles Turner roll hard to the basket. And so DeRozan's kind of stuck in no man's land here. They throw it out to Jalen Smith, and he pump fakes off DeRozan and is able to just take this himself and finish strong at the rim. That's awesome to see from a big man. And obviously something that, someone like Vooch can't necessarily do. And so this is something I'm hoping that Jalen Smith can bring to the Bulls next season, whether that is him starting or him off the bench. That's a good kick out option. and he's not going to be what we call a catch and thinker, right? He's either going to shoot the ball quickly, or he has the ability to put the ball on the floor quickly and drive hard to the basket. And another play which is kind of in transition as well. It's another shovel pass here from Halliburton. Just sees Coby White come up on him. Coby White is a little bit out of control, and it's hard for the Bulls on this possession. But Smith recognizes a smaller guy. I'm going to drive hard on him, and he finishes right over Coby White and gets the and one. So again, just another example of Smith just putting the ball on the floor, simple, and goes hard to the basket. He doesn't do anything fancy, just understands, all right, I got the ball here. My defender came out hard onto me on the closeout. I get to put the ball on the floor here, and because he's smaller, I can probably finish at the rim on this possession. So this is a possession here of what I would call the entire Jalen Smith experience on the offensive end. So watch basically everything he does on this one possession, and it kind of put everything together from what I've said, right? So his spacing, right, his ability to put the ball on the floor, and obviously his three-point shooting, which is very important, which is along with his spacing. But just keep an eye on Jalen Smith as he moves. So this is Jalen Smith here. He's being guarded by Andre Drummond. So pick and roll top of the key. We have TJ McConnell up here, pick and roll. And Smith sees that McConnell took the screen. He rolls hard to the basket. This puts the defense now in a little bit of a hard spot because now the Bulls are kind of all over the place. Drummond is nowhere near Jalen Smith right at the moment. He's watching McConnell. The Bulls are going to have to switch this. And so instead of Drummond staying on Smith, you see that Coby White ends up having to take Smith here. So now suddenly, just because of Jalen Smith's hard roll to the basket, there's a big mismatch here in the middle of the floor. Coby White is being guarded by Jalen Smith. They actually try to get it to him. You can't really get it to him here. As you can see, McConnell tried to force it in, and it wasn't really open. So he throws it back out here. Smith then moved over to the other side of the floor baseline. And now the defense kind of reset a little bit. You see that Drummond is back on Jalen Smith, which is good by the Bulls, but he keeps moving. Okay, next drive. Instead of Jalen Smith sitting here baseline, he moves back out to the three-point line, understanding how to create space. And you see here, Drummond comes out, decides to kind of go for the pump fake, and Smith instead just drives hard to the rim, gets fouled, and is going to go to the free throw line. So that just kind of encapsulates what Jalen Smith is all about on the offensive end, right? You saw kind of everything I showed you throughout all these clips in just one possession. You know, screen and roll, him moving well without the ball, and then obviously his three-point shot being an advantage, and then the ability to put the ball on the floor. So just a prime example of how Jalen Smith can be used on the offensive end. Now, here's where we're going to talk about Jalen Smith's defense. It's definitely not great. I am aware that his pick-and-roll defense is not something to kind of be, you know, bragging about. And I'm going to be showing you a clip here where his defense on the pick and roll is suspect. And this is against the Bulls. I went back and just pulled up recordings when the Bulls played the Pacers, so I can get clips like this. And so this is just a simple Alex Caruso, Andre Drummond pick and roll. And as you can see here, Smith's in the drop, which is what the Bulls have been pretty much playing defensively with Vooch and Drummond sometimes, is the drop defense. So as the pick and roll is happening, you see that the big man drops down, and it's up to the guard to get through this screen and make sure that they stick with the guard or the ball handler. It's also important that the main defender or the point of attack defender forces the guard to take the screen. You do not want the guard to go this way because then Smith's out of position. He isn't able to help in that sort of scenario. And you see here, they force Caruso to take the screen, and Caruso just kind of finishes right over him. So you can tell that there isn't much rim protection when it comes to Jalen Smith. And while Caruso's like not like, you know, he's a good athlete, he's not like a dynamic guard in a sense. And so with Caruso being able just to get a left-handed finish over Smith, it doesn't really bode too well. So that sort of pick and roll defense where Smith's in the drop and you don't really have that great of a perimeter defender to kind of help him, it doesn't really add up to much success. And this is a little bit concerning when it comes to Smith and him playing the center position. But I'm going to show you a couple things where I see where Jalen Smith can be pretty decent defensively. I'm not saying good, just saying that this is kind of showing off more of his strengths on the defensive side instead of showing off his weaknesses. So, for example, here, let's watch this play. So this is a Coby White and Nikola Vucevic pick and roll. So it's handoff, and now the pick and roll starts. So you see here, instead of Jalen Smith being down on the drop, he decides, I'm going to stick with Vooch this time. And hit the point of attack defender, which is Nesmith on Coby White, goes under the screen instead, which is a little bit ambitious by Nesmith because Coby White's a good shooter. but it works out this time. But you see here with Smith, he stuck with Vooch until he saw that Coby White could potentially turn the corner, and he comes over and helps, right? So now he's helping out Nesmith to make sure that Coby White can't get a line drive to the basket. And once he recognizes that Nesmith has gotten Coby White back in front of him, he recovers back to Vooch, right? And he recovers really well. He moves his feet really well for a big man. And so he recovers back out to Vooch and makes sure Vooch doesn't get an easy line drive to the basket. And instead, Vooch settles for this little shot here, which is not that good of a shot. And obviously, he misses it. So that's kind of a strength for Jalen Smith, is that he can move his feet really well to kind of recover onto maybe a shooting big man, or I guess Vooch is not really a shooting big man, but a big man that can kind of, work on the perimeter in a sense. But this is kind of where I think Smith's strength on the defensive end is going to lie in, which is when it comes to the pick and roll defense for Jalen Smith, instead of him being, a drop defender in the pick and roll, I want him to potentially be like a blitz, guy, where instead of him dropping down, he instead blitzes the ball. So instead of him sticking with Drummond here, you saw that Smith decides, I'm going to come over and blitz Coby White on this pick and roll and make sure that Coby White gets the ball out of his hands. Because Smith moves his feet well defensively, and this instead forces, and he gets the tip on this, he forces Coby White into a really bad turnover. And so I'm not saying with Jalen Smith that you need to do this every possession. I'm just saying that you're going to have to kind of mix it up with them defensively. Maybe one possession you kind of do, the drop defense, and then the next possession he stays with the big man, and then maybe the next possession he decides, I'm going to blitz the guy handling the ball to try to see if he can force the turnover, which you kind of just saw right here. And then maybe even some possessions, for like example this one here, where he is pretty much guarding a guy that's on the perimeter, which this is a small line for the Bulls. He was playing the 5 in this scenario, where he just switches onto the guard itself, and Coby, as you can see here, has to take this little fadeaway shot here, and it's not obviously a bad shot by Coby, but he saw that Smith was able to keep him in front of him and not let him get an easy layup right to the rim. So maybe that's an option for the Bulls defensively with Jalen Smith when he's playing the center position. And when it comes to Smith, I'm aware that his numbers, in terms of his block shots, don't really say that he's a good shot blocker, but I feel like there is some sort of potential there. I'm not saying that we're gonna see it in the Bulls uniform. Like, don't say like, oh well, Duncan said he's gonna be a good shot blocker. I never said that. All right, I'm just saying that I see some shot blocking potential with them, and this is the reason why. Because we see clips like this where he comes on over and recognizes that Brown's going up for a dunk and just completely swats it. Like, it's stuff like this where I'm like, I see it. Like, I hope to see more of it, but obviously he hasn't done it consistently because it just hasn't been his game. Another possession here was Scotty Barnes has a direct line drive to the basket. Smith comes on over, blocks this shot. These are like two impressive, block shots from Jalen Smith. So I'm hoping to see more of this. And maybe this is something with Jalen Smith where he just has to work on his awareness. Because one thing with Jalen Smith that I will say defensively is I can see with him that he doesn't really ever get back cut by his guy. Like, he understands where his man is on the floor basically at all times. But I think he understands where pretty much everyone is on the floor, but he just doesn't understand the timing necessarily, when to come over and help and when to stay with his guy. That's kind of what the gauge I get with Jalen Smith, and obviously he's only 24, turning 25, maybe he's already 25, but I think maybe this might be his next step when it comes to his development, which is use that defensive awareness that you have to make that help defensive play. Make the right rotation and potentially get a good block shot, or make sure you get that good contest at the rim and change the shot at the rim. And then honestly, when it comes to the offensive end for Jalen Smith, just continue doing what he does for the Bulls next season. It would be fantastic. And the biggest thing, in my opinion, that I'm going to be watching is if he does get more minutes, which last season he averaged about 17 minutes per game last year. If he does get more minutes, his 3-point attempts need to go up next season, because even if he shoots less than 42%, let's say he shoots 37% from 3 next season, if you increase your 3-point attempts with that percentage, it's only going to help the team. So that's kind of my two things that I'm watching for Jalen Smith next season. Using his defensive awareness to kind of help the team defensively, and then increasing your 3-point attempts whenever necessary if you get the increase in minutes, which I expect him to get an increase in minutes next season. But that's all I have for you guys in this video. Hope you guys enjoyed the video on Jalen Smith. If you did, make sure to hit that like button if you're new to the channel. Hit that subscribe button. I'll see y'all in the next one.